What's going on, y'all? This is your boy Mick, the Mark, the Sports Dr. Spock, Mickey Coleman, coming at you with another video. Check this out. I finally watched the first episode of the Hulk Hogan documentary, Real American. And some of the stories you hear in there seem to differ just a little bit from some of the stories you might hear from other people who may have known Hogan, and some of the things in the timelines that were in the documentary are a little bit different than what might have actually happened, because not to speak ill on the dead, Hulk Hogan told a lot of stories. He told a lot of stories, and some were a little bit more difficult to believe, and some of them were proven to be all-out falsehoods. But anyway, let's get into the damn reaction to the documentary. Now, I had a video with my reaction to the documentary with the sound to the documentary up, but Netflix decided to take it down. So you will have to go to my Rumble page to see that one. But hopefully you enjoy this one. Now, they start off with the man's funeral, and it was star-studded. Kevin Nash, Paul Wright, and just a host of other celebrities were at the funeral, which was a real weird way to me to start off the documentary, because the name of the documentary was The Rise. Like, how did he grow up, and how did he become who he was? And they started right, I guess the funeral was the end, which was a little bit different for me to take, but whatever. So after that, they showed him in his home gym. Hulk still has a home gym, which he's kind of downgraded as he got older, just because, he can't work out quite like he used to be able to. But for a man that was in his 70s, he did look pretty damn good working out, if I must say so myself. He did very well. Now, he had a hard time getting up after the workouts, but he's in his 70s, and I'm in my 40s, and it's a little bit difficult for me to get up after just sitting down too long. And so I'm not in the physical condition this dude was in his 70s. But we'll go from there. Him and his son Nick were working out, and he started to talk about his parents, his mother and his father, and he was speaking on how they were hard on him, especially his dad. He was saying his dad was an old school Italian man that was very, very hard on him, and was actually closer to his older brother. Wasn't really all that close to him. Terry Bollea, and we're going to say his real name right then, because that's who he was as a child. He wasn't the Hulk, he was Terry Bollea. And his father worked construction, and he said that they were poor. They were very poor whenever growing up in Florida. And he said as a 10-year-old child or a 12-year-old child, he already weighed 196 pounds. But what happens is he got into watching wrestling. Down in Florida, he was watching guys like the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. He was watching Ernie Ladd, Superstar Billy Graham, and all the guys that were hot in Florida back then. And Florida was a big time territory back when Hulk started wrestling. See, it used to be, for you newer fans, wrestling didn't be 3 or 4 companies like we have now, or really 2 companies like we have now. It was separated between territories, and the territories, they all pretty much helped each other. Like, if you had a wrestler that needed help learning this, you would send them to another territory for a little while so he can learn it. And maybe they'll send you one of their guys to help him work on something else. Or, like, if one of them left, period. Like, say, if one of them went up to Vince Sr. in New York, because New York was still the big-time promotion back then. If one of them wanted to go there, Vince Sr., before Vince McMahon Jr., the guy, you know, who took over, okay, we want this guy, and we're pretty much going to give him. But what I'll do for you, Vince, we'll send you, maybe I'll give you Andre for 2 weeks or a month. Well, you're losing your top guy, but you still get a month worth of sellouts because you have Andre. That's how they would help each other. But anyway, getting back into it, Hulk started by going to the bars in Florida. First, he was, you know, a world-class guitar player, as they said. They said that the Hulk could really play the guitar, or I don't know if it was the bass, I don't really remember. He was really good at playing guitar. And that's how the wrestlers would come to the bars, and he got to know them then. And they said how he got smartened up to the business is he was set ringside one night because he didn't think he could do it. You know, he didn't have that type of confidence back then. Even though he was a big guy, he didn't think he could do the wrestling thing, even though he was bigger than most of the wrestlers. But he saw the heel mouth to the baby's face hit me. And then Hulk was like, oh, I can do this. I don't have to be the toughest guy. Which to me is an amazing story. So from there, he starts his training, and one of the Japanese wrestlers, it ain't Tojo Yamamoto, but it's somebody you would know. I'm sorry, I should have wrote things down. Broke his leg. I want to say it was Saito, but it wasn't Saito either. It was Mr. Saito. Broke his leg. So Hulk was out for a while, then he came back to train some more. And from there, they sent him, I believe, to Georgia, where he wrestled his first match was against a good friend of his, Brian Blair. And he wore a mask. They didn't want to show who he was because, honestly, he wasn't that good yet. He was very green, and some said he was terrible. And they sent him finally to Georgia. And Bret Hart spoke about him. He was like, well, you know, Bret Hart at that time, he said he already knew more about wrestling than Hulk Hogan would ever learn. But, you know, Bret's real funny in this documentary when he spoke. But here was this big guy that was very green, but they still wanted to push him because they felt like he could make money. Back then, he was called Sterling Boulder. Well, no, he wasn't even called that yet. But it wasn't Hulk Hogan. It wasn't. In fact, they skipped over the part where he was called Sterling Boulder. They didn't even talk about Sterling Boulder, but he wasn't Hulk Hogan yet. And Bret said all he could really do was like the bear hug move. But that's how he finished people off, with the big bear hug. Matter of fact, I have a video on here of Hulk Hogan in one of his very first matches in 1979. That was probably from either Georgia or Alabama, with him finishing a guy off with a big bear hug. It was one of his very first matches. Go back into the archives here and check it out if you're into classic wrestling. So anyway, he finally gets sent to Memphis. Now, they're going to tell you in the documentary the first place they sent him to was Memphis, but that's not necessarily true. He was wrestling for a few months before he got a couple other places before he ever got to Memphis. And then they finally called him the Hulk. The Hulk Boulder or whatever. He wasn't quite Hulk Hogan yet. But Jerry Lawler basically, Jerry basically gave him the name of Hulk. Jimmy Hart met him back then in Memphis, and they're trying to say that Jimmy Hart and Jerry Lawler went to high school together. But Jimmy Hart is 5 or 6 years older than Jerry Lawler, so I don't really see how they went to high school together, but whatever. Jimmy Hart might not look like it, but Jimmy Hart is 80 years old. And the last time you seen him on TV, he was still just this little ball of energy. And Jerry Lawler is older, but he ain't quite 80 yet. You know, the fact that they said there's just a few discrepancies about, you know, the documentary, but it was still very good television, very entertaining, and I do recommend you see it. Now, I've only seen the first episode. So they get into him basically playing guitar. You know, he figured he could make somebody play a guitar. He was very good. His father, though, wasn't having it. His dad said, you know, you can't stay here and play. You know, they got to a ball. He kicked him out the house. So he had to sneak in the house, and his mother would feed him, and then he would have to leave when it was time for the daddy to come out. Now, if you guys ever seen the movie Jungle Fever, Hulk Hogan was basically Samuel L. Jackson's character without the heavy drugs. Mama smoked the motherfucking color TV. Okay, anyway, so they get into the part where he meets his first wife, Linda. And I guess from first sight, these two were enthralled with each other. And the first night, Hulk invites her over to his crib, and he got the cheeks the first night. He clapped them cheeks the first night. Those of y'all who've clapped cheeks before, you had them clap before. But anyway, and they were together ever since. So ladies, let the dude clap the first night. He'll call you again. Anyway, I'm joking now. They just fell in love after the first clapping. Not necessarily. But anyway, so they finally get in to him. Oh, he gets called by Vince McMahon Sr. in '79 to work as Hulk Hogan in New York. So somebody sees him, and Sylvester Stallone sees him and wants him to do the movie Rocky III. Rocky III, Hulk Hogan plays this wrestler called Thunder Lips, the Ultimate Male. Hilarious. So he has a charity, fight with Rocky during the event. But anyway, Vince McMahon Sr. says he didn't want him to do it, and he ended up firing Hogan because Hogan decided to do the movie. But he said he wanted to do the movie because he knew it would blow him up. And it did, it worked. So, after Senior fired him, he was okay. Like, he had a place to go because of the territories. Now, if you were in New York back then, or you weren't working for Jim Crockett in Charlotte, one of the best places you can be is in Minneapolis, working for the Guardians, the AWA. At the time, Mick was the champion, and he went there and became a huge star. See, the Rocky movie set it off, but he became a huge star in the AWA. So, right about the time, Vince McMahon Jr. takes over. Somebody passes a note that they want beats the Iron Sheik. Now, they kind of skipped over that he's already worked with Andre the Giant. Probably in Shea Stadium. And probably way before then. He worked Andre the Giant a few times in Alabama, I believe, with Sterling Bowden. They didn't talk about all that right there. And that's basically the gist or the meat of season 1, episode 1, the rise of the Hulk, or the Hulk Hogan documentary on Netflix.